Hey folks, it's Simon here with your Tao Weekly Market Outlook for the week beginning Monday the 10th of November 2025. So the S&P's had a rare down week last week, and you can see on the weekly chart here, finished the week off down about 1.6%. If we look at the Nasdaq, that fared slightly worse, down 3.7%. But both of these indices were coming off quote-unquote overbought levels. Right? Normally when an index gets to the red line here, it'll often work its way back to the white line. Now the Qs haven't done that yet, and they may not for reasons that we'll explore in this video. Same with SPY, we didn't quite get to the red line, but look, you don't always need to kind of get up there. We did here and here, but here we didn't quite. All right, so we don't always have to get up to that level. We kind of close enough is good enough sometimes. But last week's weakness brought us back into the range of Friday the 10th of October. This is the day the S&P dropped 2.7%. We then chopped within that range for 9 days before breaking above it and then dipping back below. Now Thursday's kind of bar here was a pretty important test because we'd pulled back basically to the mean, but we'd also dropped back into this range. Now when you break out of that range and drop back into it, a retest to the bottom of the range is always a decent probability. All right, so that's kind of one of the obvious negatives that I see in this price action. But there are some important positives as well. One is that these two gaps have been filled. The second one is that we've held the 50-day simple moving average, which acted as support back in here. And the third one is that we closed on the session highs. All right, the bears tried to push price lower. They didn't win. The bulls actually ended up winning the day. SPY closed in the green on its dead highs for the session. All right, so those are all some positives that we can take away into this week. If we have a look at the Qs, similar story. This gap got filled, this gap got filled. We've now got another gap here which may yet get filled. Again, we found support at the 50 SMA, which is a big level. And again, even though the Nasdaq closed in the red, it was down marginally. It closed out Friday on the highs of the session. All right, so again, it potentially sets us up for some more bullish behavior coming into this week. Now the headlines state that it looks like the government's going to reopen until January at least. That has buoyed the futures and pre-market trade. S&P futures up 0.7, Nasdaq futures up 1.2%. So it looks like we'll at least have a more bullish start to the week. But even without those headlines, I think the price action on Friday was sort of setting us up for some continued momentum to the upside this week anyway. Couple of other charts to keep an eye on. One is the VIX. You can see here that the bulls couldn't win the day in the VIX. That closed on its dead lows for the session. And then also the dollar. Now remember, a dollar and the equity market do not have a one-for-one correlation. But in a general sense, a rising dollar is a headwind and a falling dollar is a tailwind for risky assets like stocks. Now it looks as though the dollar has failed at the 200-day moving average and historical resistance, and maybe looking to at least come back and test these moving averages. So a declining dollar, all other things equal, is generally going to be a tailwind for risky assets. And what will be key is how the dollar reacts when it comes back into this kind of 99 sort of region. Does it find support here and then make a move to a higher high? Or does it keep falling? All right, if it keeps falling, that's generally going to be a risk-on sort of an environment. Okay, so my expectation is I will continue to play this week with a more of a bullish bias. I'm currently flat. I don't have any positions on at the moment, but I am looking at putting some money to work on the bullish side, and the specifics of those trades will be shared with members in my Accelerate program. That's a wrap for today, folks. I hope it helps, and I wish you good trading. Thank you.